we are going to start the video by saying hello to Reiko, which is cold. She's very cold. She's sleeping, but she's very cold, as you guys can see. She's in her bed, and now I'm going to record the video that you guys are about to see. So good morning everyone, and welcome to another video here on the channel. Let's do this. Good morning everyone, welcome to another YouTube video. My name is Mafalda, as most of you already know. I'm the creator of this channel, Bookworm Retreat, as well of the blog and of the Instagram that you can follow me down below, and the link is in the description box down below. I would first like to say that I'm not an English native speaker, so obviously there will be some gaps and some, problems with probably my accent or even with the way that I formulate sentences, and if so, I'm sorry about that, but I'm doing my best and I hope you enjoyed the video. And I hope you also enjoyed seeing a little bit of Reiko sleeping. She's right there. She's very cute, but it's very cold, so weather update, it's very cold. It's currently like 5 degrees, and I know that's not cold for some countries, but here is very cold. So yeah, so without further ado, let's talk about January. So in January I read like 13 books. I read a lot, but it was mainly because of the challenge that I am currently doing, a Portuguese challenge that's called Portas para outros mundos, so kind of like doors for the other worlds, in a roughly translated version of it. And in that challenge we have like several small different challenges. We have a weekly challenge and a daily challenge every single day during the month of January. And thanks to that I read different books. I read books that I never thought I would be reading, and I enjoyed myself a lot, even though that I sometimes was very difficult for me to read in that day because of work or something like that. I was always trying to find like time, squeeze a little bit of time to read 1 or 2 or 3 chapters or something like that. So it was fun and I really enjoyed it, and I don't know, we don't have any prize or anything like that, but I think it's very good and interesting that we have this opportunity, to talk to other people of our teams, because the game was like the challenge, we were divided into teams. So I was Team Winter, obviously, and because winter is one of my favorite seasons, and and we like read a lot, talked about books. It was very funny. So I really enjoyed myself during this month. And obviously you can see that because I read 13 books. I completed 13 books, and I'm also almost done with A Court of Wings and Ruin. I am doing a reread because I already read the Kotar series like 2 or 3 times already, but it's my favorite series of books, so I always like to read them in the beginning of the year or at the end of the year. So yeah, I'm almost done with that, and I started If We Were Villains by m.l.rio, and yeah, those are the 2 books that I already started, and I plan to finish them on the 31st of January, so obviously I can't say that they are good or bad because I'm reading it. Of course I can say the A Court of Wings and Ruin is perfect. It's amazing, it's a 5-star obviously, but I already read it, so it doesn't count. The new one that I'm reading is If We Were Villains, and that one I feel like I can't even make an opinion because I'm still in chapter 1, so I'll probably do a review later on in February about the book. But let's talk about the books that I already finished. So as I said, I was reading A Kotar series since Christmas. I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram, but if you don't, please do, because I will be very happy. And if you do follow me, you know that I started during the Christmas, that limbo part between Christmas and New Year. I started A Court of Thorns and Roses, And I started January reading A Court of Mist and Fury. So they are big books, as you guys know. Like A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin are big books. And so I started reading A Court of Mist and Fury. If you guys haven't read it, please do. I would probably say from the original trilogy, like ACOTAR, ACO Math and ACO War, A Court of Mist and Fury, it's probably my favorite. I really like how Farah can lift herself up out of the of her depression. Let's just call it like that, because that's what it was. But I don't want to give any spoilers to anyone. If you guys haven't read the books yet, please do. It's amazing. They are amazing. I got A Court of Thorns and Roses, the first one. It's not... I think that now looking back, I remember thinking that it was very good, and now that I reread it and now that I know the story, I think it's the worst of them all because it's the first one, but it has a lot of potential. So that being said, I think that you should read ACOTAR, all of the books, because you will see that it's amazing. And we already have that one translated to Portuguese. I think all of them are kind of translated to Portuguese. The last one, A Court of Wings and Ruin, is actually coming out in February the 2nd, so you can actually have it in Portuguese as well. And yeah, so you don't have any excuse, you need to read it. But yeah, so I started the year with that. That's 5 stars for me because it's my favorite book. The collection of all, like the series. My favorite book is A Court of Silver Flames. I know, and a lot of people will probably give me hate or something like that, but it's my favorite book. I love Nesta. I really identify a lot with her, and I think that she's an amazing character. I think that the character development wasn't like that bad, but it wasn't that good, and I enjoyed myself, and that's what matters. The second book that I read, it was a 5 stars. It was the first 5 stars read of 2023. It was The Midnight Library by Matt Weig. It was amazing. I honestly, it was, I don't know, I don't have any words to like really tell you how much that book was important to me. It doesn't have like plot twists or anything like that. It's a very simple book, a very straightforward book, but you enjoy yourself because it's simple, it's clear, and you kind of feel like you are being taken to a different voyage, but different type of literature that you usually don't read, you know what I mean? So yeah, and for me, I'm currently struggling with some more difficult thoughts about some parts of life that are complicated for me right now, and this book was very helpful regarding that. So the book is about a girl named Nora Seed, and she decides to end her life, so she doesn't want to live anymore, and she overdosed. And as soon as she overdosed, she ends up in the Midnight Library. So the concept is that you end up in a limbo between life and death, and you have to decide what you want to do. And in her case, because she likes to read, her decision comes from the Midnight Library, so the library, and she is able to live different lives. So the books that are in the library are actually her different lives, and are composed by the regrets, the sorrows, all of that she felt throughout her life, the original life, and she can decide which life she wants to live. So you end up like half of the book thinking, is this the life that she wants? Will be that one? Which life will she end up living? And it's actually pretty interesting because it talks in a very simple, straightforward way about the idea of multiverse, about the idea of different lives that are kind of happening in parallel universes. So it's kind of cool, and it's a very interesting way of talking about life and death. And for me, it was very good. So it was 5 stars, and I highly recommend you to read. Another 5-star read that I read is actually a manga, and it's called The Wolf Boy Is Mine. I only read the first volume, and I really enjoyed it. It's a high school kind of thing manga, and if you like fruit baskets, this one is perfect for you because it's kind of like the same thing, and you will enjoy it. It's very funny and very, high schoolish, and it's very, I really like that, just to get my mind out of things. and I would recommend you to read it. That I also would recommend you to read, and was a 5 stars for me as well, was All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. And this was actually a friend of mine that was nagging me for months for me to read it, and I was like, yeah, I'll be reading it next, yeah, don't worry, I'll be reading this. And I was like, dope, I'm going to read it, why not? And honestly, it was perfect. I read it in a day. I read it in a Sunday. I remember so well. I started reading like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I finished it at 10 p.m. And it was amazing. Colleen Hoover's writing style is perfect. I always say this in all of her books. I already read Verity, and I read It Ends With Us. And I remember when I read It Ends With Us, it broke my heart. And Verity was very well written, and I really enjoyed the story. And now this one, All Your Perfect, again, it broke my heart because it's so good, the way that she talks about loss and relationships, and it's perfect. And I think that every couple that is trying to build a family, or is struggling with a lot of difficulties about infertility or fidelity and all of that, please read All Your Perfects, because I think it's the best way to talk about your problems and the things that you're feeling. Also, I know that in the book, Hoover talks about a box. I don't know if you guys read it, and I'm just going to say this, a spoiler-free information. There's a box with some letters, and I was thinking about doing that in my wedding. A lot of people do that, and I was thinking about doing that because I think it's very cute, it's very sweet, and in 10 years, 20 years, 40 years time, or every time that we have a crisis together, we can reread those letters and think, yeah, this is the reason why we are doing this. And for me, it's very important. Okay, another book that I read, it wasn't a 5 stars. Obviously, not all of them are 5 stars, please, come on guys. But another book that I read and I really enjoyed it was My Mechanical Romance by Alexine Farrell-Falmouth. This is actually the author of The Atlas 6, and I was very scared because I was thinking that I didn't enjoy The Atlas 6. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to enjoy My Mechanical Romance, and I actually kind of did. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars, which is not bad if you really think about it. It's very high schoolish for me, so it's a young adult story about a girl and a boy, obviously, and she's actually going with the flow. She doesn't know what she wants to do, or she's still figuring out all of that, and he's actually, I want to do this, and I need to get this, and these are the grades that I need to have in order to get to the MIT and all of that. And Belle, the name of the female main character, is very resourceful. She's very smart and very quick-minded and all of that. So one of her teachers says, why don't you enroll in physics and in robotics club, because you actually are very good at building things, you are very resourceful. And she's like, not very good at math, I don't know if I can't do that. And the professor, her teacher, is like, please do, try it, you don't have anything to lose and all of that. So she actually ends up she does the auditions, she ends up getting a role in the team, in the robotics team, and a place in the advanced physics class. So she actually ends up there. So the thing that I enjoyed most was the fact that the author is trying to deconstruct the idea that female aren't supposed to do physics, because even though we know that women are very good at technology and physics and all of that, and robotics, there's still a preconcept, it's not preconcept, wait a minute, there's still prejudice regarding that. So there's a lot of people that say that women are engineers, or women can't build robots, or can't go to space, and all of that crap, because we know that that's a lie. So obviously, so I think it was very interesting that the author, Alexine, incorporate that in a young adult kind of book. So this book is perfect for if you are looking for a present to give to your 14, 15, 16-year-old niece, sister, friend, all of that. My Mechanical Romance, it's perfect, and it talks in a very smart way about the role of female people in society, and how we as females are always being put down and in all of that, because it's a man's world, you know, that idea. So I really thought it was very clever. I really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy the romance because I think it was very too high schoolish for me at the moment, but I can recognize that it's a good romance for people that are younger than me. So bearing that in mind, I give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, because even though it wasn't the right book for me because of my age and all of that, I can recognize that there are very good things in the book that I think that you guys should read it, or if you know anyone that like this type of books, please recommend this book, because My Mechanical Romance is perfect. Now, this one was a very good surprise. I read Twisted Love and Twisted Hate by Anna Wang a long time ago. I read Twisted Love in summer, in July, and I read Twisted Hate in October, November. And I hated both of them. So, I mean, when I say I hated, it's not like I hated 1-star review. It's like it wasn't the right book for me. I don't feel like it was doing anything for me. And the first book was very triggering for me because I saw a lot of things that I don't agree personally. So, yeah, it was difficult for me to enjoy the books. However, when I saw that Anna Wang's released King of Wrath, I was like, I'm going to give the author another chance, because sometimes they do have a very, you know, different approach to stories, and it can be good. So, I read it. It took me a week because I was doing a lot of work at the time. I was doing the report for my PhD, and I loved it. I'm not even joking. It was a 5 out of 5 for me. So it was very funny because I didn't enjoy the other books, but I enjoyed this one. So again, it's a lot of smutty, it's a lot of sexy kind of things. So obviously this book is 18 plus, obviously. But what I really enjoyed is that the characters aren't that young as they are in Twisted Love, Twisted Hate, Twisted or whatever. They aren't like in their 20s. The female main character is 29, 28, 29, and the male main character is 36, 37. So you actually have that age gap happening, but they are adults. You know, they know their place in the world. And I really think that that's what driven me to liking the book. Like, they were people that are already, you know, even though they don't have everything held together, because we actually don't. If people are saying you that adults have their things together, they don't. We actually go with the flow, and let's pray that everything works out. So that's actually how we do it. I talk about as an adult, and I don't feel like an adult at all. So I need an adult to adult, like the TikTok meme kind of thing, audio. But what I enjoyed is that there are different. The character development is better than Twisted Love. And I'm comparing to Twisted Love because it's also the first one of the Twisted series, and this one is also the first one of the new series that she is releasing. So the character development is better, the world building, I'm not saying that it's better, but at least it's better described, and you have a sense of place and time. The only thing that I didn't enjoy was the fact that they stay together. So what happens is that Dante Russo, which is the guy, ends up getting engaged with Vivian, the female character. And it's a business, it's an engagement just out of convenience. It's actually an engagement out of blackmailing, but you need to read to understand why is that. But so Dante suggests that they actually start to live together before the wedding, and they have 1 year from the moment that they decided to get engaged until the wedding in August in Italy. The thing is, the book has a lot of time lapses, and you actually don't. It's kind of like, it's not a bad thing, but for me, I would prefer to have more, daily momentums happening in the book than just things that are dramatic and all of that. Just see, because you sometimes have time lapses of 3, 4, 5 weeks, a month, 2 months, in all of that. So I think it will be better for the reader to have more daily interactions and all of that. We actually have that, and it's very cute. So that's the only complaint that I have, but it's not a really complaint because I overall enjoyed it. I think the book had a perfect character development. I think it's well written and I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read the next ones. And I know that I need to read the last two of the Twisted series, so I'm going to do that. I have a lot of books to read. I don't have that much time, so I'm not going to judge all of the Twisted series. I'm only comparing to the ones that I read, and specifically to Twisted Love because it was also the first one and I didn't enjoy it. So the next book that I read was Splintered by A.G. Howard. It's a fantasy book. It's kind of a young adult, but I would probably recommend people over 14 to read it, because even though it doesn't have any smut scenes or sex scenes or whatever kind of that, it does have some fantastic / scary things. It's an Alice in the Wonderland retelling, and it focuses on the bad aspects of the Wonderland kind of thing. So the goal is not to like leave the fairy tale, but actually to unravel the fairy tale and actually to show people how, you know, the fairy tale is not that cute and all of that. So I really liked it. I thought that the character development lacked a little bit more, but at the same time I really liked how the author approached the fairy tale and actually gave us something scary and utterly different, and I really enjoyed it. So it was actually a 4 out of 5 stars. So I think it was a very good read, and I highly recommend for anyone who likes fantasy or fairy tale retellings and all of that. Plus you do have love triangle, so it's good and I really enjoyed it. So the next one that I read at the same time that I was reading Splintered, it was because of the, you know, these two were books that were selected by my team members of the Team Winter. So Splintered and Strange the Dreamer were both suggestions and I really enjoyed them. And Strange the Dreamer was actually interesting. Firstly, it's from Lenny Taylor, you know, the author of other amazing books that I highly recommend as well. And this one was also a young adult fantasy book, and I really liked how, you know, she approached the idea of myths and how myths form character and personality in a broader sense. Of course, the story is about a boy that's called Lazo Strange, and he's an orphan and he lives in a monastery, you know, convent kind of thing, and he actually loves fairy tales and stories and all of that. And one day, one of his favorite stories from a city, the name of the city disappears from everyone's mind, so nobody knows how the city is called. They only know one word, and that's weep. And nobody knows why, nobody knows what happened, but Lazo becomes obsessed in solving why the secret of that city and, you know, their treasures and all that just slipped out of everyone's mind. Why can't we say that what happened? And so he ventures on a quest to solve it and to save, you know, everyone from that city. So I'm just saying something very broad because I really think that you guys should read it. It's, I would say, probably 16 plus, because it's not that bad, but it's bad in the sense of smutty scenes, sex scenes and all of that. But I think that there are scenes that are better for an older audience. But overall it's a very good book, and it's a young adult, it's fantasy, the world building, it's amazing. Again, Lenny Taylor's writing style is perfect for everyone who likes fantasy. It's not very confusing, it's very easy to follow. So I gave this book 3.5/4 because I really liked it, and I think that everyone will enjoy it as well. So highly recommend you to read Strange the Dreamer. Now this one was actually a hit and miss. I feel like Ollie Black really did a very good job with The Cruel Prince, the first book from the Folk of the Air trilogy, but the other two books for me, they were not that good. Probably it's my own fault, you know, probably I grew a little bit much. I grew too much to read that kind of books. I don't know what happened, but I feel like when I was reading, as I said before, when I was reading The Wicked King and Queen of Nothing, I felt like the characters were too distant and I couldn't connect with any of it, and I thought that the world building was very rushed and I didn't enjoy it that much as I enjoyed The Cruel Prince a year before. However, when The Stolen Heir just came out in January, when The Stolen Heir appeared, I was like, I'm going to give this a chance. It's probably an interesting book, it's probably a different approach, and all of that. Really, I felt bored. I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. I felt so bored. I felt like most of the characters were just similar to Carden and Jude. I felt like it was nothing, nothing different, in the sense that she's bringing me something new, she's bringing me a new quest or something like that. I felt like it was same old story, you know what I mean? And I didn't enjoy it that much. So I read it, but I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars, because I really didn't think that it was too good. And I'm sorry about that. Now the other 2 books that I read are different. I read The Shift, New Perspectives for Poetry by this author. I'm going to leave it here. This author, I didn't add the name, stupid. But I read it and I really enjoyed it. I usually don't read poetry, which is a shame, because I really enjoyed the book, and I think that I'm going to probably start reading more poetry, because it was so good. The book was written during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, so you do have a lot of poems about that. But the thing is, the focus of the group is not the pandemic itself, but rather the shift that, using the title, that it almost provoked us. Like we didn't plan for it, but our perspectives changed, and how the way that we see and connect with the world changed because of the pandemic, and the way that we value ourselves and we value our self-worth changed. So I think that the author does a pretty good job, and the illustrations are just gorgeous, and I think that it's very fast. It's like 180, 170 pages, so you read that like in 1 hour or something like that, and you do have a lot of good poems. I can leave like except here some parts of it, because it was very good and I really enjoyed it. And the other book that I read was Chico, The Dog That Waits. It's translated in Portuguese from Luís Prat, and it was my Christmas gift, as most of you guys know, by Henrique, and I finally read it. It's 150 pages, and boy oh boy, I didn't cry. I sobbed. I cried my eyeballs out. It broke my heart in 1,000,000,000 pieces, because it was so raw, and the story of Chico is very emotional, a very emotional one, and I really enjoyed it. But and I loved the book. I don't know if you guys ever saw it, but it's amazing. It has like Japanese illustrations kind of thing, and it's very good, and it's considered as a child book. I don't know how it's possible, because I don't know if children do get that. It's why the book is so sad. But overall, it's a very focusing on the positive. It's a very good book for us to see how deep pets' love runs for their owner, for their parent. It depends on your perspective. I personally think myself as Reiko's mom, so I'd say for their parent. And when I say pets, I'm not referring to just cats and dogs. I'm referring to all animals that you feel like you have a connection, a deep connection. So Hachiko shows us that, and that's why I love the story, and that's why I always cry so much. So I highly recommend, if you need a good sob, go read Hachiko, or go watch the movie. But personally, I think that you should read Hachiko, because it's very good, and I really the last book that I finished, because as I said before, I'm still reading A Court of Wings and Ruin and If We Were Villains, and I plan on finishing them on January 31st, sorry. But the last book that I finished was The Duke and I by Julie Quinn. Now, I read this book when the Bridgerton series on Netflix came out, and I didn't enjoy it that much. And I decided to reread it because this week challenge is to read an old favorite. That's why I'm rereading Aquar, and that's why I thought that I'd probably read The Duke and I. Now, I still don't like some parts of it. I'm going to be totally honest. I still think that what she did, and I'm not going to give you spoilers, but if you saw the show, you know what I'm referring to. But I think that what Daphne did was not okay. It wasn't consensual, so in my opinion, it's not something that you should even give credit for. I know what I mean. So for me, that scene and that part of the book is so cringe, and I hate it, and I think that it should be removed because it doesn't do anything for the book except make me hate the girl. It's not good. But at the same time, I really, really, really enjoyed, you know, the Regency era and all of that. And I really like romance, historical romance, and I really like that. So overall, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, which is not a bad score, bearing in mind that I don't like that particular scene. But it wasn't that bad. And I was thinking that maybe I should read all of the other Bridgerton novels. Again, the TBR doesn't stop growing. And I never read The Viscount Love Me and all of those other 800 books that she wrote. So I'll probably do that, and that's why I decided to read The Duke and I again. So in 2020 I gave The Duke and I book probably a 2 out of 5, and this year I gave it a 3 out of 5. So I think that's progress. And I think that shows that probably the book is not that bad, and I was in a very bad mood when I was reading it, but it doesn't matter. So Akowar, as I said before, is a 5 out of 5. I already read it and I know the story by heart and I love it. And If You Were Villains, I just started, so I can't have an opinion about it, but I'm really excited. It's a Dark Academia kind of book. It has those kind of vibes, and I really like those vibes, as most of you know. So I'm really excited about that one. I waited so long. It was one of the Christmas gifts that I received, and I can't wait to read it. I already have a pen, you know, to underline everything, because I think it will be one of those books. I hope I'm not wrong, because I had the same feeling about the Atlas 6 and I hated it. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't that long or boring. And if it was, I'm really sorry. I tried to be as interesting as possible, but you know, if you are new here to the channel, please subscribe. I would love to have you here as a follower. Also, please follow me on Instagram. I would be very happy if you do. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a great week and good reads. Bye!